our first segment on today's Big Blend Radio show, airing live from the Wild Wisteria Bed and Breakfast in Chadsford, Pennsylvania. It's cool. I feel like we should do the polka, Nancy. We should do it because we're here in Pennsylvania. But today's segment, our first segment, features award-winning author Rebecca Whitehead Munn, and she is joining us to talk about her new book. It's called All of Us Warriors, Cancer Stories of Survival and Loss. And it shares 20 stories. I know, Nancy, you've been reading the book. And it shares stories from the front lines, really about, I think this is really important because it's about communication. You find out a good friend or a loved one, a family member, or maybe a colleague at work has cancer. What do you say? How do you help them? How do you help them? What, that whole communication thing is that awkward pause. And they also want to be able to communicate, but also going through that inner, like, oh my gosh, So I'm really glad she's on the show today. Her book launches on September 1st, so there's going to be a party online. We know everything's virtual right now because of COVID-19, but go to her website, RebeccaWMunnAuthor.com, and that's MUNN for Munn. But Rebecca, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
We're glad to have you here, and I think you're tackling a topic that cancer is something that I don't know anybody who doesn't know about cancer or have a loved one or a friend or an acquaintance that is dealing with it, right? And it's still that word. I mean, it's like COVID. It's like that C word we don't want to know about, right? It's like, But when I've recently lost, over the last, I would say, 3 years, really young friends to cancer. And it's like, oh, you're young, you're vibrant, they're the most healthiest people, and how do you communicate? That part of it. So is that part of why you wrote this and shared actual real stories for people going through it?
Sure. That's a good question. Yeah, actually, it was a young friend of mine who had just been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And she was in her early 40s with 3 children under the age of 11, and it just totally blindsided her. And I was sitting quiet, thinking about her and praying for her, and all of a sudden this idea popped into my head, just like Elizabeth Gilbert talks about in Big Magic, if you've read that book. And it was just, you should write these stories and share them. And I had written my own story of my experience walking the end-of-life path with my own mother, who died of colon cancer. She survived breast cancer, 20 years before that. And so I had some ideas in my head, of things that I had done and things that were helpful to me, experiencing that as a loved one of someone who had cancer and who died. And then here I was with my friend Melissa, and I just decided, I should do this. But I didn't know what to do, right? So it was one of those very divinely guided processes. And so I was having lunch with my friend Robin a few days later, who's a cancer survivor, and I just looked at her and said, well, hey, I have a project you can help me with. And so through both of our friend circles, we were able to find people who were willing to share their stories. And I really thought it was important to show all sides of the disease, so not just the inspirational survival side, but also the reality of some people don't survive, right? And what is that like? And so we, reached out to these folks, and everyone was really open and willing to share their story. It was such a fabulous experience for me as well, even though I had experienced it both from my mother as well as from other friends. I grew in the process of capturing and writing their stories and working with each individual to make sure, I captured it the way they wanted it told.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting follow-up. I know your memoir is The Gift of Goodbye, that, is the first book.
Yeah.
And to follow it up and kind of go into everybody else's stories, this is, I think it's, when you read a memoir, you have that personal connection, and then I think you're following it up with more personal connections, right? So people can understand by personal stories. I think that history would be taught better if it was more that way. Don't you think? You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I agree.
Yeah,
we tend to relate to stories, right? Because we can see pieces of ourselves for our own story and other people's story and journey.
And
that connection.
That connection. And I think, watching, and being part of our different friends process, every single person is an individual with a different reaction and a different cancer. And there's multiple cancers out there. And, even look at right now with COVID is kind of this weird thing too. It's like, what happens when your friend says, I have COVID, and it's that same thing. How do you react back? And you've got to know your friend or loved one well, or maybe they're going to be off in a different place. It's a very difficult thing of knowing what to do in today's world. Also, especially on social media, can your words get, like, can you help on social media? Like, can you talk to your friends through that when someone's going, hey, I'm getting, maybe it's radiation and maybe it's chemo, or they're going through this, I'll post this. Sometimes I have friends that are doing that just out of, I need to blog about it, I need to write about it, because most of our friends are writers or in tourism, right, or musicians, and they have to put it out there some way. They have to get it. That's part of their therapy. And then to react to it, there's this part of hugs and kisses and thoughts and prayers, but there's also this reality of where they want to swear at everything and kick the can. You know what I mean? So there's this balance. So where do we come in as the supporting crew of that? Because sometimes I think Facebook or social media can be a great avenue of connecting and keeping people informed, but also we're not reacting according to maybe the person at that moment. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And I heard a lot of that through each of the stories. It was really interesting because my whole goal was to tell each story in the kind of tone and personality of the person. So as you read the book, you'll notice that each story is a little different. It has a different feel, and it really kind of matches person. But each one, I would say, spoke about this, and I think it's a human kind of dynamic of fear. We fear that which we don't know. So if we haven't experienced hearing a cancer diagnosis ourselves, we don't know what to do, right? And so the fear kind of can manifest in many different ways, and the most important thing is not to run away, if you will, right? Not to disengage and think that the person needs time. There's simple things of sending a text, hey, I'm thinking about you, you're on my mind.
Right.
It can be as simple as that. It could be dropping off supplies of paper towels and toilet paper on someone's front doorstep and just leaving it, and there's a lot of ways to connect, even if the fear is kind of crippling you from finding words.
It's really true, because I know in my family there was some terminal illnesses, not necessarily cancer, but the process seems to be the same, where people stand back like, oh, don't intrude. And it's really, I think it boils down to, I want to say something, but I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing, or I'll talk at the wrong time or call at the wrong time. And the person with the illness usually seems to be reaching out, and the people on the other side are standing back to give them space, whatever you want to call that, or they don't want to intrude, or they don't want to appear to be being nosy, which is a big one, at least in my family. And it's so there's so okay, well, I'm not going to call till somebody calls me, kind of thing can go on. And there's also a bit of denial, like I just really don't want to know. So it seems to me there's a lot of factors that go in. Like when my dad got really ill, he had pulmonary fibrosis, and he was given months to live. Well, 20 years later, he was still alive. And so he wasn't well, but he was still alive. And so it was kind of up and down all the time, to the point where, okay, this is the last few days. We're like, yeah, right. Because it just kept up and down. Then it wasn't, then it was, and it wasn't, then it was. And so I watched, I could see as a kid, and then becoming an adult, how long it lasted and what my family and family friends did during that time. And it was an interesting experiment in a way. That sounds kind of not, I don't mean it to sound cold, but I watched people's dynamics and how they reacted to each other. And it's funny because everybody kind of danced around everything and really never talked to my dad. It was all going all over in the family, but nobody really talked to my dad. I remember that. It's a dynamic that it still confuses me.
And it's interesting because I heard a lot of similar stories, right, from these individuals, and I would say my mother experienced that also, and I would say, being a daughter of someone whose mother was dying, and we knew that she was going to die, people withdrew from me, right? My friends or people like stepped in and loved on me, and just said, hey, I don't know what to say, but I just want you to know I'm here. And something that simple was just really touching and made a difference.
Yeah, because
that's the best thing.
Yeah.
So that is, I think in the nowadays, what we have now is a lot of us are at least like, hey, we're here, and I think that our communication has changed over the years. And so I think we're a little bit better about it, but we also have to be mindful of the emotions that someone who is ill go through, and the medication. And medication changes people a bit. And so we have to be mindful of that and don't take anything personally, right? I mean, if someone's angry at cancer, they may, do all kinds of things and let them vent it out and not be over. There's like the split opposite of everything we're talking about is we can be overbearing. We want to do everything. And, and the person with cancer may say, hey, I want to still have some independence. Thank you. Because that's part of their survival. We know someone who had breast cancer in her later years, and it was completely unexpected. And they basically, said, hey, that's the end. And she just told everybody to leave her the hell alone. I'm going upstairs to my room. I will tend to my farm, and that's that. And she's fine to this day. And she was going through so much, and she just knew how to heal herself. And I think some people that are really feisty and fighters in life are like that. And if that's what they want, you kind of have to let them do it. You sometimes have to back off. So
exactly. And so you're,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
You're touching on another important point, which is, and I'm actually certified as an end-of-life doula, so I learned this through my training of being present with that person and being comfortable with allowing the conversation to flow wherever that person wants it to flow. If they want to be angry, if they want to vent, if they want to cry, if they want to laugh and be happy. The key is kind of getting outside of ourselves and giving a little selflessly to that person in that moment, right?
Right, exactly. I think it's so cool that you're writing these stories. To me, this is part of this. Are you going to do this as an audiobook ever? Like, do you see it going down?
I likely will.
Oh, good.
I likely will. Good. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we're getting that way as a society. September 1st is your release date, right? Your publishing date, your big
Yes.
day.
Yeah. It's my big day.
On the first, your big day. So are you going to have cake? I just virtual cake.
Yes.
We can't eat your cake, but we can virtually celebrate, right?
We can virtually celebrate, and I actually have a book launch scheduled with Parnassus Books, which is an independent bookstore here in Nashville, Tennessee, where I live. And it is, as you said, everything's online. So it's a Facebook Live book launch. And so I'm hoping that lots of folks, lots of my friends and family and people will join in through Facebook for that big celebration.
And I want to tell people there's extra cake, right? Because
always extra
you
cake.
there's always extra cake. Number one, because you're in Nashville, and I know. Listen, we've been traveling the Southeast, and when you talk about hospitality, hello, it's there. So there's always going to be extra cake. But you just won the International Book Award for healthcare, for health, and the cancer health in regards to cancer, but it was a finalist in the self-help category too. So you rocked it. This book is.
That's
cool. It's already winning awards.
It is. I was very, very humbled by that. For sure, it's very exciting. And so people, my friends have said, well, how does that happen? How can you win an award before you launch a book? And so what happens is there's something called an advanced reader copy, which I think you guys got a copy of that. And so my publicist, sent in some award entries, with those. And I just forgot about it, honestly. And then one night I happened to check my email and went, wow. So I'll tell you, my goal is to touch 1 million lives with these stories because at the end of the day, my writing is about helping other people. That's really what it comes down to. And so winning an award like that is really going to help the exposure, right, and get the word out.
I agree.
Okay. Okay, I'm just going to say that I think because the topic is a huge topic, and it doesn't just it's just not a people topic anymore. I mean, I know people with pets, our own pets, they get cancer, and you have to stop and wonder why even our pets are getting cancer. What's going on? How do we stop this thing? How much is being done to find out why this is happening to so many people and now to our pets? There's got to be a reason. What do you think that might be? What do you think is actually the cause?
That's a really good question, and I think it's very individual, so I don't think it's a blanket cause. I can speak, personally. I actually interviewed my mother about this in her last days, and she felt like she was very in tune with the mind-body-spirit connection. And her opinion was she was carrying deep-seated resentment, which supposedly you carry in your colon. That's where it gets stored in your body. And that's where the cancer came from. Now, again, that's her personal opinion of it. And I'm sure there are lots of other reasons. There's clinical reasons, and then there's the mind, body, spirit side, right? And I think it all depends on, where you land in terms of your thinking and beliefs.
Well, this is interesting because you're interviewing all these different people, right? And creating this book, and I'm sure you had more than the 20 stories too. And that's going to be a trial to put a book together and go, okay, this one first, and so I don't even want to be. I mean, we edit stuff, but it's like I'm such a walkover on it. But it's hard, when it comes to this kind of personal, deep story. And are you seeing connections between everyone you've interviewed? Whether it's about emotions or whether it's about survival or how to deal with loss or the whole thing with cancer, like what you're saying about your mom, I think it's interesting because I think one day, and I think it's getting closer, science and spirit or the cloth or whatever you want to everybody call it, will merge at some point, and I think it's getting there. And they've been fighting each other for years, right? Centuries.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
I think at the end of the day, you know, in your gut as a human being, you deep down know like what feels right to you or wrong, right? That gut is always proven right in some form, whether it's fear or excitement or, you know, hey, beware. What your mom said is really right. I think in ways of there's this health side of it, like, but at the same time I look at there's a mental health, there's a spiritual health, there's a whole health of life, and I don't think we can all be perfect, but we can strive to be as happy as we can be without trampling others. And carrying resentment is a thing that's a stress, and they say scientifically stress causes cancer. It's a part of it. You know what I mean? There's it's going to affect your immune system, basically, right? It's not like, hey, I have stress, so therefore I'm going to get cancer. No, it's about it affects your immune system. So it does get into the scientific side, but I don't know. It's like I look at, you know, a very, you know, a young friend in her late 30s. Everything was organic. She was a massage therapist, for not just, you know, for massage for everybody to feel good, but it was medical massage and all of that, you know, helping elders. And I mean, everything was just organic. Everything was clean. And I couldn't believe it. She died. And that was it in her late 30s. And the way her life ended was so brutal because she was a young woman fighting for herself. You know what I mean? You know, she was born in Yosemite National Park, this lady. And
wow.
She fought. It was the healthcare system that almost took her out. So do you see, that's what I was going back to those commonalities. Do you see any patterns going around everyone that you talk to, like different patterns? I mean, is it the healthcare system that is a pain in the butt? Is it just certain emotions?
Right.
You know,
it's a good question. So I actually work in healthcare. I work in mental health, and so I know the healthcare system much than most, you know, the general public. So I will say there is a common thread you will see through the stories of getting misdiagnosed or not getting diagnosed in a timely manner, and it, you know, progressing. And I think we've, at least I speak for myself, I was brought up in a world where you just trust the doctor, you know, and the doctors were trained to do no harm, right? And it's almost kind of, we put them on a pedestal and just really separated outside of our bodies, right? And at the end of the day, each of us knows our bodies better than anybody. And each of our bodies are unique, just like you said earlier. And so there's a common theme of people in the book talking about how they came to trust themselves more, came to, you know, tune in to that gut level response and know, you know, when something was wrong. The healthcare system, you know, not, you know, them getting tested and not finding out that there was something wrong with the test, and, you know, finding out, oh, just kidding, like something is, you know, wrong and you need to come in. And by that point it's progressed, right? So I think the whole why and the journey is a bigger topic, right? On what you think of our time here on Earth and that journey. And, you know, some people, they do everything and then it's just their time and they do die, right? So I think the common theme, I would say, would be that people deepened their trust in themselves. They deepened their faith with, you know, whatever higher power they believed in, and really became comfortable in their own skin of being who they were from the heart, right? Versus serving others or giving everything away, right? To where then you're empty as a person and you don't have anything left if you're giving everything away. So those were some of the common themes.
That's interesting.
A lot of inspiration.
Yeah,
we have a friend.
Today, happy birthday, Margot, who's going through cancer, and she's an amazing photographer, and it's her birthday
she's
today.
A beautiful
That's
person.
a big deal. An amazing human being, just wants to save every tree, plant, flower, butterfly, bird, everything,
Yeah.
And she works really hard towards that. And, she's, and I know she's fine with us talking about it, she wants people to understand the beauty of nature and earth and spirituality and that inner knowing. And she's gone through all the journeys of the chemical things to the natural things to she just gets to this point of, I'm going to do what feels right for me, regardless. It gets to that point of, if I'm not feeling good with this and it doesn't sync right with my being, I'm not going to do it anymore, because I've been through this before and before and before and before. So did you find that a lot too in all these interviews and the stories that you share in your book?
I did. And I will say it's interesting, the struggle is very real, and it really is regardless of the stage of the cancer or the type of cancer, because I have stories of men and women with all stages of the disease. And I think the eye-opening piece for me was the real inner knowing of the stage 4 cancer survivors that are, 5-10 years out now from their experience, and just the strength they built through the experience. And that's very inspiring to me, and hopefully it will be to others.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is telling a story of healing on all levels. Honestly, regardless of it being just cancer, right? And I don't say just cancer. I mean, like, it will transcend, like Nancy said, with what her dad went through, and others with different, illnesses or diseases, or maybe it is COVID, like I said at the beginning. I think it's all gonna, it crosses over,
Yeah,
you're sick.
It does. Sick. It really does. Yeah, it really does, and it. It comes down to trusting yourself, and your story about your friend who took herself away from everything and said, I'm going to do this my way, and she's still here and kicking and screaming strongly. And I think there are many people who are wanting to be helpful, and sometimes all that help is being with an individual's ability to heal, right? Like, they need to shut off the outside world, and then some people need all of that all the time, right? So it just kind of gets back to your point about we're each individual, and it's really for those of us with a family member or loved one or friend, what is it that individual needs in that moment, and giving to them in that way, right?
It's really true. I know I spent half my life visiting my dad in LA General Hospital, and he was in a ward with all these other people. Everybody had something sort of the same but slightly different, and they were all diagnosed as terminal illness people. And we would go in there when I was a kid, and my dad was like the funny dude on the ward, and when he was home he wasn't that much fun, but in the hospital he became like a movie star kind of person.
Wow.
And he was of course he had a lot of drugs that they gave him, but he would, like, when we'd come to visit, he would introduce us to all his new classmates, as he called them. And he kind of commandeered the ward. And then as you were talking to the different people, and they all had different illnesses, but they were all terminal. And you could see the ones who've already made up their mind to go, I'm done, bye-bye. And then you could see the ones who wanted to fight. And then you could see the ones that kind of did this catatonic kind of state, like They hadn't made up their minds. They didn't know they're stuck. They don't know whether to just give up or to move on, and they just kind of got stuck. And those people seem to be the ones that had nobody visiting. And that, I just remember this as a kid, and then I, I used to always kind of feel bad for the ones who just kind of hid from everything. You know, you could see the ones who's like, I want to go, and either were really religious or really not, but they're done. They're tired of the pain, the suffering, and all that. And the other ones are, I'm fighting, I'm going to get better. And then there were the ones who had family members, you can do it, you can do it. And then there were the ones who just kind of sat there like almost as if they didn't know what was going on. So, yeah, I look at this and I feel that I know our healthcare systems are advancing, and I understand that they have to advance on the physical realm, but I also feel that the mental side of illness is kind of left behind a lot of times. And I think the mental side of people who are really ill has to be addressed.
I completely agree. It's and you know, bigger than cancer, to your point, the mental health side of COVID and the impact to all of us for, you know, being so isolated and losing our jobs and being evicted or, you know, just it's significant and it's just not being talked about enough. No.
I agree. And so I know, what were you, I mean, I want to go back to the beginning of you, you know, Rebecca, because, you know, your mom, you write a memoir, you know, and, you know, everybody, again, go get that too, The Gift of Goodbye. And now you have your book coming out, All of Us Warriors. And I love that title too, because I think
me too.
It's like, yeah, come on, eat that Cajun spice. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, we can do it. And whether it is survival or loss, you have to be a warrior. That's why I love that title. It's so good. And here you are writing. I mean, when you were a little girl, did you think you would get involved with that? I mean, what were you doing as your career before? I know that you're involved in healthcare, but did you think this was going to happen when you were a little girl looking out at the stars maybe and going, I want to be a firefighter, or maybe no? I don't know. I wanted to be a firefighter at one point. I love firemen. But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, well, hello.
I do.
How about that? I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? It's a great question. I grew up the youngest of 5 girls, all born within 8 years, so we were all very close in age. And my mother was very, very strong-willed, very independent. She worked outside of the home. She raised each of us to believe, her and my father did, to believe that we could accomplish anything we set our minds to. Like there was no constraint, and so and she's an avid reader, and so I grew up reading, you know, also, and I just had this dream that one day I want to write a book, but you know that was it. Like it was just out there, and then when I went through the process of her diagnosis and her subsequent death, and I also went through a divorce with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old just after her diagnosis. So I had a little bit going on. And she just was, she's that constant, you know, just, you know, believed in everything I did. And so I kept a journal through all that. And afterwards, you know, I would talk to my friends about the things that I learned from the experience, and they just kept saying, you ought to write about it because that could be helpful to others. And so it took me 10 years, I'll tell you, but, you know, when you're raising 2 children and by yourself and working full time, you fit in your writing, you know, when you can. And so I think after about year 5, I started a blog, and I didn't know. I had no idea what I was doing. I just went to WordPress.com and put one up, and I started writing. And so what was funny is that I would put it out there, and then I would get emails saying that people were finding it and commenting, and I'm like, how in the world are they finding it? Like, it was beyond like my understanding. And I thought, well, okay, that's giving me inspiration to finish it. And so I committed to myself that I would finish version 1.0 of it that year. So that took another 6 months, and then, you know, subsequent, I worked with a publisher, and so I had a lot of revisions over the next 3 years. But anyway, it did come out in 2017 and won awards, and I sold out of the first print run
That's
as
so
well.
cool.
And so that was exciting, you know. And again, my writing is really, it's not about me, it's to help other people. And I feel like I'm really a vessel here to get stories out. And so it, you know, after my first book came out, I actually was taking time off. So I've worked in healthcare, various parts of healthcare for the most of my career. And I was taking a sabbatical. So my book had just launched. I had just taken my oldest child to college. And it was like this good time in my career that, you know, I'm just going to take a break, because I've been working and working and working for 15 years, you know, raising my kids. And so I had a lot of quiet time, and I was like, you know, I really enjoyed writing. I want to write again. So I was working on a different book when this idea popped in my head. And so I will tell you, this publishing journey has felt like it's guiding me, if you will, because, you know, the idea popped in my head. We found you know, people to share their stories, and all of it happened in a year. Like, I started in 2018 and then 2019. You know, it takes that long to bring a book to market. So,
I mean, it's the writing a book is a process, and it's like joyous, and then you want to rip your hair out, then you want to kick cans again. Like, I'm going to kicking cans again, and you know, it's painful, but also it's joy. Creativity is, I think it's the best thing in the world. I love creativity, you know. But what you're dealing with, the topics you're dealing with, the heartbreak, and also the passion, and like, I will do this, I will get through this. You're dealing with a magnitude of emotions, and how do you handle that? Because you're doing the interviews. I know Nancy and I go through things at times with different shows and just people we meet and interview and different situations, and it affects you. And there's times where it's like, okay, man, we got to go for a walk, man. You know? So how do you handle that? Because, I mean, it's being the person receiving, as you say, being the vessel of these stories, you're still receiving it in. And how do you keep it healthy for yourself?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that I've changed how I do that over time. And I think where I am now is it's a mix of yoga. So I practice 4 different types of yoga, you know,
cool.
Yoga with weights, yoga, restorative yoga, power yoga, just for all different, you know, kinds of outlets for me releasing this energy, right? I also meditate. I do spend a lot of times outdoors in nature, hiking. I play golf. In the winter, I snow ski. So I'm very much, I would say, a middle of the road. I'm kind of in between introvert and extrovert. So I know when I reach my limit of extrovert and, you know, taking in these stories and talking to people and writing them and then working during the day. There were some weekends where I just like unplugged, like I disappeared.
That's it.
From life, you know, and I
get
just
that.
did whatever I wanted to do whenever. You know, I had no schedule, and I would just go for a walk, or I would watch a movie, or read, you know, just in all sorts of different avenues. And what's most important, I would say, is to acknowledge the need to decompress like that. It's really important in all parts of life, right?
Right,
you know, I really believe that the biggest part of illness is, no matter what it is, is, when people say, "Oh, your immune system is low," I feel like um, that stress is probably the biggest enemy that it chips away. And when they say immune system, it's they're talking physical stuff, but I really feel that stress is the kickoff to lowering your immune system in many ways for a lot of people. I think
and you're right.
that
It is.
yeah, I study mostly animals and I see what they do, and they have this ability most of the time they get stressed out, they get really mad, they growl or they run, and they're done with it. I don't think they harbor it like we do. Like something happens, whatever happens is done over, and then that's that.
I think you're right.
We harbor it, and we even wake up with stress. Like I hate alarm clocks. I don't want to wake up to bring, bring, bring. Thank you very much and good night. No, I don't want it. No. I want nice soft music or a waterfall or something nice.
Exactly.
Yeah, sounds lovely.
Yeah.
I know. I'm with you on the yoga. So when we get to Nashville, let's go do yoga with you in a park. How about that? You game?
Oh, that sounds awesome. I would love that.
But we don't know how to do yoga really, right? So like
well,
I could do cat. I could do cat
about
yoga.
Practicing. Yoga is called, you practice yoga, which means there is no right or wrong. You just practice.
Yeah. I
So
just
we'll
stretch
practice.
and breathe. And I do different weird things that I go, this feels good, so I'm doing it. So
I could do cat yoga.
So
I know how to
do
cat yoga.
Yeah, we can do cat yoga. We stretch like animals, and that's what we do. And listen to music, right? Nature is nature is the fix. Music is the fix. That's when I think we're tuning in, and yoga I think is so great because we are stretching like animals do. If you watch, every animal on the planet stretches in some way and breathes and rests. And we as humans, we're not resting, man. We're out of control. We are out of control. And so we got to get some, chill out. Chill.
Yeah.
Chill out. And I think that's a lesson of COVID-19 is chill. You don't have to do everything.
I agree. I agree.
Cool.
Thank you, Rebecca. We have to go, and I'm, dang. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. So we'll see you when we get to Nashville, hopefully. I say that everywhere, but you know what? We'll end up on people's doorsteps. You never know. But everyone, Rebecca W. Munn, author.com. All of Us Warriors, Cancer Stories of Survival and Loss comes out September 1st. And keep up with her on Facebook because she's going to do a Facebook Live. I hope my Facebook gets undisabled by then so we can be there, This whole thing, I got hacked bad. I know. They just, I have nothing nice to say about it, but I'll come back. I'm going to go yoga and meditate in the garden with it. Everyone, again, go get it September 1st everywhere, right? Amazon, all those places for books. And you're going to do your book event in Nashville online. And here it is.
Cool.
It's in independent bookstores. So go to your independent bookstores and
ask
for the book. See? That's it. Just keep your bookstores in business. Just
that's
saying.
Right.
That's just my plug.
Okay.
My plug on that. Thank you so
I'm
much,
with
Rebecca.
You. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And here it is, Rebecca Munn, Rebecca W. Munn, author.com. That's MUNN. So keep up with her there. Thank you so much for joining us, and you take care.
Thanks for having me, and you take care as well. Bye-bye.
That was fun. Cool.
Bye. Congratulations, too, on the book release. Take care.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.